Good evening and welcome once again to the show. I'm Willie Hassel, and this, of course, is Lynn Nickerson.
Good evening, Willie.
And good evening to you. How are you?
Just dandy. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, it's nice to be seen. And not to mention, it's nice to see you too.
Well, thank you. Yeah.
So what's going on? Anything?
Well, now that you ask, I was going to give my comments on our guest tonight because I feel that, well, we've had a lot of great guests on, and they all have some wonderful experiences and information to bring to the show. But tonight, well, I consider them all special, but tonight we're going to be discussing something.
Consider me special?
Not in this category,
way,
no, Willie. You're special at what you do, though.
Okay. I'm a little confused, though. Do you want me to introduce him first? Or
Well, no, I wanted to mention this before you say your name just yet, because I feel that, every guest is special and they all have something to bring to the table.
Okay. Right.
But tonight we're going to be discussing something that is really difficult for people to talk about, and oftentimes they don't have a place or platform to showcase what they've got to say. And it's going to be really different than what we've done on any other show before, because we've never gotten into in-depth information like this. I mean, I've had encounters that I can't explain, and I know a lot of people do. A lot of people have personal comments on UFOs that they can't understand. But tonight, I feel that we're going to get some really detailed information, and probably from this Mike guy sitting over here.
He's the one? Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I think I'm very anxious to hear his story, and I know it's going to be new information for an awful lot of people out there because it's going to be so detailed and stuff they haven't heard before. I haven't heard a lot of this stuff before, and we're going to get it firsthand tonight. So it's really kind of anxious.
So you heard it here first?
Yes. Yeah. It's kind of like we're being let in on a secret.
A secret?
Yeah, that's the way I feel.
That's the way you feel? Right. Okay.
So you might want to introduce him.
Oh, okay.
Now would be a good time.
Okay, well, him is Mike Stevens, and he is the founder of Granite Sky Services. Mike is a New Hampshire native, born and bred. When not helping others with their experiences, you can often find him in the forests and the mountains of the state, camping and hiking. Mike's experiences started around the age of 3 and have been ongoing ever since. The experiences have come in a variety of forms and demeanors. Dealing with his own experiences has led him to help other experiences overcome their trauma as well as his own. Mike is also a seasoned paranormal researcher and investigator. He has worked to change the stigma around abduction phenomenon by promoting public awareness of the subject and by encouraging and supporting other experiences. He was the initiating force behind the New Hampshire historical marker for Betty and Barney Hill's UFO encounter. Mike has been interviewed in the past by newspapers, television, and radio about his involvement in the paranormal and UFO communities, locally as well as internationally. Mike has become a trusted source for New Hampshire's UFO history. So welcome to the show, Mike Stevens.
Welcome, Mike.
Welcome, Mike.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Glad to have you back. Well, let me open this up with, if you could tell us a little bit about the role that you played in getting the historical marker started, created, and then placed.
So that program's run through the state. It's actually a state-run program to put up a historical markers for anything of, historic value within New Hampshire.
How did you manage to break that paranormal ceiling, though? Because weren't you kind of hit with a little bit of resistance? Yeah,
so the process for all the markers is you need a petition with at least 20 signatures of New Hampshire residents. And from there, the wording has to be very specific, number counts, line counts, and everything on the marker has to be backed up and provable.
Wow.
So that was a big issue to get through.
I imagine, yeah.
Luckily, Kathleen Martin, Betty and Barney Hill's niece, renowned researcher of her own,
Yeah.
got involved and was able to help provide documents and this and that that the state was looking for. At the end of the day, the state wasn't ready to come out and say, aliens are real, UFOs are real, they were abducted. What they were able to say is the cultural impact of this story in this case, that in itself is historical, and for that they would put the marker through.
Oh,
That's a
okay.
good way
Yeah.
around it, because I'm sure they're very conservative people.
Yeah, they don't want any backlash on their end.
No, oh, that's very clever. So everything that Kathleen had to check had to be backed up by truth. But what I'm thinking is, it's either something she lived, so what is there for actual verification? There's the written word, but who's going to back up the written word? Because sometimes journalists get it wrong.
Yeah, I believe she had access to the original, like Blue Book files from the Air Force
Oh, okay,
files
very
and all
cool, yep.
that they actually reported it as part
Yeah.
of what helped back it up to push it to that historic level.
And
Yeah,
that would
and-
be acceptable by the state.
And probably transcripts from hypnosis, maybe?
Yeah, things like that, copies of books from various authors. It's hard
Yeah,
to live in the state and not realize the impact that story has, whether
Yeah.
you're into UFOs or not.
Well, I just think it was such a fabulous idea, and I thank you for doing that. I think it was something that was definitely needed
Excellent, excellent.
and well appreciated. Puts
So
New
one of
Hampshire
these
on the
days,
map.
I gotta go and see it.
I've seen pictures of it. You're right, though. I've got to go physically there and
That's what I
take a
mean,
look
yeah,
at it. Yeah. I agree with you. Now, you're still counseling people, right?
Yeah.
So, what do you do when people they come to you and they're really anxious and they've got no answers? How do you deal with their anxiety, Mike?
There's no one
Pat way.
Yeah, because everybody's experience is different, or
Yeah.
they're at a different place with their experience. The best thing I try to do, a lot of the times, people just need to be heard, get it off their chest, and without
And
being
not ridiculed.
ridiculed.
Yep.
And then, to have somebody like me who's heard it, but have you ever heard, say, yeah, you're not crazy. I know other people this has happened to,
Yep.
this or that. And it's not like I'm up here on a pedestal and they're on the couch. There's no doctor. A lot of the times calm them down. I'll tell them a little bit about what I've been through, just to be like, look, you're not going to go crazier than that. There's nothing you're
Yeah.
going to say that's going to surprise me. Just-
Commonality is very important. They know they're not alone and that you're willing to hear them.
Yeah, and a lot of people, they come in the first time and, it's kind of like a nervous puppy energy.
Yeah.
They finally get the chance. They haven't said anything their whole life. And then they try to, just yep, as much information out as you, just as quick as they can to get it off their chest. And then you won't hear from 'em for like another couple days, couple weeks sometimes, because they've never said it before out loud or to anybody else. So now they're like, uh-oh, did I overshare? And then after they kind of go through, they usually call back and they're okay. But it seems to be an internal process that a lot of people go through.
Do
Go ahead.
you find that a lot of the people, I'm going to say older, I mean, not senior, but older rather than young
Being
people
young kids or-
that, have probably had experiences all their life and it took them that long to actually come out and say something? Or
Yeah, I mean, for the most part,
You get a real cross section of people, of ages.
you do, but within a certain bracket. I mean, I don't have a lot of 25-year-olds.
that's what I was thinking, yeah. Maybe like 40s or something.
40s and upward, yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, it's hard to believe younger kids because you never know if they're, pulling your leg, I would think.
Well, yeah, that's one thing, yeah.
Well, even with the people I'm dealing with, especially the ones who had started younger and then they're still having stuff, a lot
Yeah.
of their younger ones seem to be more physical in nature as far as encounters, like there was an actual being there, an actual ship. But even some of them, as they get older, they're having less of those type experiences, more non-physical experiences, where it's kind of like through a dream state or other non-physical type things. So
Yeah.
I think with that shift, I can see in that, I kind of wonder if that's what's going on with the younger generation, if they're not necessarily having the physical type. I believe it still goes on, but
Yeah.
I think a greater range of it is probably in that non-physical.
Do you suppose, too, that since they're younger, they haven't gotten to the point where they're starting to have flashbacks, so that maybe their memory has been like shut off? And as they get older, it seems like people start like leaking images of what they experience. But it's a process of time, so that they might be a little bit older when they start realizing that something might have happened those years ago.
Yeah, I believe that definitely
might be
plays
part of
part.
it.
And I also think now, where it's on the news a lot more and stuff, on the internet,
Yeah, it's more
a lot of people
talkable.
might not even go, oh, wait, that happened to me. They might just be, especially a younger person, they just might be like, oh, see, it's on the news. This is normal. This happens. Not worry about it.
Okay. Well, you know, Nomar Slivik is he's an investigator, and he likes investigating unusual stuff, including paranormal events and UFO activities. So to date, he's published 3 different books, and they actually all have something to do with UFOs. One of them is Otherworldly Encounters, which is a combination of the two, and then he's got 2 other ones that focus on primarily UFO activity. So what I'm interested in knowing, when he approached you with the idea for Granite Skies, how did you feel about being made the subject of this? Were you kind of concerned about perhaps losing your credibility and or your privacy?
Credibility, not so much. Privacy,
Good.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Not so much for myself, because I'm out there. Do things like this, so I'm not so. But like that, on the book form, like it's in print. I really had to worry about my mother seeing it, my father reading
Oh.
it, family, and things like that.
Do your parents know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they always
But
knew I
they
grew up
might
and
get
had.
kickback that you're concerned about.
I don't think they realized the level of until they actually read the book.
Did you know Nomar before this all came up? I know this kind of started at a meeting at KRI, didn't it?
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
you know him before then, or was
I
that
had
when you met
worked.
him?
I was working with Bill Brock. Bill Brock and Nomar were
Yeah.
doing a documentary, Abducted New England, and I said, "Oh, why don't you guys come down here and talk about it and stuff?" And then we had Nomar come down and talk about some of his stuff. So we had a few interactions, more business-like,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
when he approached me, we both kind of thought it would be kind of like your standard, typical UFO book. This happened here. This happened here. This happened here. Yeah. Done. Not to make fun of anybody else's book or anything like that, but we thought it was going to
Yeah.
be kind of like that standard narrative. And the more we got into it, and the more we started just connecting personally as we were going through it, and he's had some experiences that kind of overlapped and stuff, so we
Yeah.
kind of formed this great bond, and the book kind of just took its own life.
Yeah, you piqued his interest, because I think when he approached you, he was not only looking for answers himself, but I think that what you had to say would have a very broad appeal to the audience, that people should know about it, and somebody should go public with it. And I think that was him doing the book was a really great vehicle. I think he did a great
We should
job on it.
probably mention the name of the book.
Granite Skies, I did.
Oh, you did?
Yes, but I
Okay.
didn't give the subtitle, A
Yeah.
Disconcerted Journey Through the Unknown, because what Mike has been experiencing has been a disconcerted journey.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was apropos. So one thing I did want to mention is why do you think you might have been chosen, and the Rh negative factor, which I want everybody to understand Mike hasn't been typed for blood, but whether or not he has the Rh negative factor. But it's interesting that a predominant number of people who claim to be abducted do have this factor. And what I wanted to bring out is what Nomar had mentioned in his book, and he was quoting the site Gaia. Gaia, right? Isn't that the right word? G-A-I-A.
Yeah, Gaia.
Gaia.
That's how I would
Gaia.
pronounce it.
Okay. I guess I haven't heard it pronounced openly. According to Gaia, all blood types other than Rh negative can be mapped through evolution. Rh negative cannot. There's like a stop sign there. So what is the source of the Rh negative factor? That's what you wind up asking yourself. So again, Nomar continues, theorists believe that the Rh negative blood type points to alien ancestors and the merging of two distinct DNAs. So that sort of leaves us with the supposition that perhaps there's some kind of genetic manipulation and or gene splicing going on. So do you think their interest in you has something to do genetically? Because you said that you felt like when you were aware of little beings around you, that there was a type of celebration almost, not like a birthday party, but they were almost happy to see you or pleased to see you. So it was sort of an indication that you had been there before. So why repeated abductions or visitations? What do you think?
So to go back to the beginning of your first question, I don't know why me. I do think it runs in bloodline. We do have some of
I
that
think so,
within the
too.
family.
Yeah.
Why our bloodline was chosen, our family, I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah, you wouldn't know that, but
But so
was
yeah.
it your grandfather you say felt that he had had some kind
He's
of
had
contact?
some strange stuff. With him, it was more, he had a huge collection on Roswell.
Oh,
and
that's
but
right,
nobody
yeah.
found out about it until he
Yeah.
passed away.
So
and
obviously he was thinking about it.
that tied into some other interactions we had over UFO books before, where he was kind of
Wow.
rolling his eyes at me, like, "You really want that one?"
Yeah, meanwhile, he has a
Yeah.
big library, yeah.
Maybe you'll find out something he doesn't want to know.
and things like that. So yeah, it seems to be more so on my mother's side, up her father's side.
Okay.
But I've had a lot of incidences with my grandmother, my mother's mother as well.
Really?
So, or on that property is.
Yeah.
So,
And you're talking Farmington?
no, this would be
Southampton?
Southampton, yeah.
So that'd be the grandmother, the house where was it your first experience, was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is an indication that it's following a family line, so it almost sounds like genetics might be
Yeah,
involved.
and when you get into the blood, I mean, the data does show they don't know where the Rh negative comes from. It does just kind of
Yeah, just
come
kind
out
of
of something.
appears.
With stuff like that, there's a lot of commonalities between experiences,
True.
and it's one of those things. I think it depends on what you look at. If you see if more are left-handed than right-handed, more blue eyes, more brown eyes, whatever your dividing line is, you're going to have one of more, which probably means something, but it doesn't mean everything, because then it's still happening on the other side. So RH might be
It might be a
positive,
factor.
but then it doesn't explain why it's happened to O's, A's, B's, or as well.
Well, yeah, I would love to. I think if people could afford to do it, or just if they knew what their blood type was, to take some kind of canvas people that claim to have been abducted and see what their blood types are. That would be really fascinating. I've just heard and read in various places that the Rh negative factor is a predominant element in the abductions. But you're right, there are other things that are predominant too.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe
right-
more blondes than dark hair.
Right,
Who knows?
it's just one of those dividing lines. That one's just one of the stranger ones because I can't source it.
Yeah, yeah, I can't really put your finger on it. Okay, so what I did want to mention is Mike was born in the 70s. So against this background, there was a lot of activity in the Exeter area, and you pretty much grew up in initially Southampton, New Hampshire, right?
Yeah.
So just for the audience's benefit, I just wanted to review the timeline of when there was a lot of UFO activity in New Hampshire, primarily Exeter, but Betty and Bonnie Hill's first encounter was September 19th to 20th in 1961. And then Incident at Exeter, which was written by John Fuller, that was September 3rd, 1965. And then the Great Northeast Blackout was November 9th, 1965, when just about the whole eastern seaboard down to Pennsylvania and parts of Canada were affected. I always thought that that was UFO related, and I was 14 when that happened. I remembered, and my father picked me up at the library in Exeter, and he said, "Oh, the lights are out on the East Coast." And I said, "Dad, it's UFOs." And he goes, "Well, I don't know." But he didn't say no.
But yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So anyway, this area has been kind of prone to a lot of sightings, and don't forget the Pease Air Force Base, which was a Strategic Air Command base at that time during the 60s. So there might have been a lot of interest in the nuclear weapons there. So what Mike is about to tell us about is not out of line with other events that have happened.
Right.
So, your first encounter that you recall was the Southampton episode. So, and you experienced something with your cousin, your female cousin. So, could you tell us a little bit about that and what you recall, and then what she recalled, and if your recollections matched?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're at my grandmother's house, as I said, in Southampton, New Hampshire. There was some type of family function going on because there was extended family, like aunts, uncles, and all that. So probably somebody's birthday or something. Like I said, I was about 3. And the way my grandmother's house was set up, you came in through the kitchen, and then there was a dining room. And off that dining room with this 3-season porch that overlooked the backyard and stuff.
And what time of year was this?
I'm not exactly sure. I
Was
feel
it
it was
warm or
springish. It
springish?
wasn't
Okay.
snow or bitter cold or
Okay.
anything like that. So as soon as I walked by that 3-season porch, there was just like this intense internal calling to get outside, like almost like fire emergency, like
Do it.
just that intensity. Yeah. I don't remember how I got outside or anything like that. You know, we were pretty well watched, even more so in that type of situation when there's that many adults and stuff around.
Yeah, they didn't want you running out into the road. And
Yeah. So I found myself standing out in the driveway. And when I got out into the driveway, my cousin, who's only like 6-8 months older than I am, you know, again, one of us shouldn't have made it out there without being seen, never mind both of us.
yeah.
So I found myself in the driveway. She's standing there, and we're just kind of waiting. We don't know why we're there. We don't know anything.
Do you recall communing with her, communicating anything? You just remember being there
Just,
waiting?
yeah. I don't think we spoke or even acknowledged each other really, or at least not to each other.
Yeah.
And then, so behind the lawn was woods, and that tree line just started, like there was an intense bright red light behind it. All you could see was like the blackened shadow of the trees with this intense red light behind it. And the light started climbing to the top of the trees, and when it broke to the top of the trees, you could make out this object. You know, it looks kind of like your stereotypical flying saucer, little dome top, little dome
Yeah.
bottom. Once it broke the tree line, it started making its way towards us at the end of the driveway. It's really hard to explain. It didn't move like a car or something that's propelled by an engine. It just really like floated like a paper airplane, like something just kind of effortlessly and just kind of floated across the sky. And there was a big tree at the end of the driveway, and it kind of stopped right above that, just off to the side of it for a minute. At that point, it was probably like 40 feet in the air, 40 feet away from us. It was close.
And you said no noise, right?
No, not
And it was continually red, or did it change its color?
only
at
when
that
it lifted up. There was no lights associated when it moved over to
point?
our
Oh, okay,
location.
so it was red when it lifted up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So at that point, we're looking at it, but you have that intense feeling of something's watching you. Not so much like, you know, when a person's looking at you, you get that feeling. It was more like an animal, or you thought you had a bear or something, that type of primal fear type
Wow.
instinct. There was a row of lights around the center of this thing that was kind of just, not like individual balls, but more like a liquid. It just kind of,
Yeah.
the color just strobed or flew with it.
I think strobed is a good way of explaining
But it was
it.
like whites and light blues, maybe soft yellows.
Yeah.
And then kind of almost simultaneously, that light bar started moving faster and changing to more bright reds, oranges, more, you know, like say violent colors, but
Yeah.
there was no like physical harm from the
Yeah.
lights. But when it started doing that, almost like when you open your car door at night, some type of interior light came on, and it revealed a row of windows above that center bar.
Oh, really?
And in that, you could see like shoulders and head silhouettes, but you couldn't make out any details. The next thing in my standing memory was this object was at the other end of the driveway by the roadside above a telephone pole. It sat there for a minute and then shot off into, just kind of disappeared into nothingness, into the sky. And that was what I remembered of the first time.
Did you say that there was some kind of a time lapse you figured?
Yeah, I never, not remembering how it got from there to there,
there were,
always,
like a
always
badly
bothered
edited
me.
film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always felt like more had happened, but I didn't know or
Yeah.
remember it that way.
Didn't you also say too that like all nature sounds had stopped, like everything was really quiet?
Yeah, I don't remember hearing crickets or even road traffic or anything.
It's so typical of these unexplainable experiences. I mean, it even seems to happen when people have a Bigfoot sighting or like a dogman or werewolf sighting. So that's strange. So what was your cousin's recollection when you spoke to her years later?
Yeah, so we didn't really talk about it growing up. It was only like
Yeah.
a surface conversation to be like, do you remember the UFO we saw when we were kids? Yep. End of the story, go on to playing or doing whatever we were doing. It would be many years later. I would end up having a hypnosis session for that block, or what I assumed was a missing block
Yeah.
in the middle. So I just done that, and I wanted to see what she remembered. So I called her up one night and I, said, what do you remember? And she started telling me, and I had forgotten about it until she started telling me. I think we were much older in this, but we were maybe around 10-ish. We were at my grandmother's house again. She had a big wraparound farmer's porch, and she had all kinds of stuff out there. So it was like a little treasure trove for us kids to go get into something. So we were sitting out there one day, and not the house across the road, but the house next to it, neighbor. We were kind of looking over across their backyard, and this red light came into the sky, and it just started making like figure eights. And
Did it really?
yeah, it did that for a little bit. And it really had the impression that it was there for us to see it.
Yeah.
Not like an accident or anything. And then it just kind of floated off. And she said that's what she remembered as the first time. And then when I told her what I remember, she's like, I don't remember that at all.
Do you think that it might have been two different occurrences?
I believe so. I
think
believe
so?
we're much. I forgot about it until she brought it up. But then when she said, I think we're much older when that one happened. And it wouldn't line up to growing up the whole time to remember the UFO. She had some other weird stuff where I kind of got stuck with more of this UFO stuff growing up. She started developing more like psychic medium abilities.
Oh, interesting.
She was talking to like people that weren't there, but she'd describe them. My grandmother would be like, that's your great grandmother,
Wow.
She remembers like looking at the Statue of Liberty from above, yet she had never been on a plane before. So she has some stuff going on too after that initial point, but it just varied.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. Has she, as an adult, pursued anything?
A little
Pursued
bit. She's
understanding
still
it?
interested in it, but
And of course, is she continuing with like either mediumship or looking into her psychic abilities?
a little bit.
Yeah.
She's interested in it. I don't know if she's fully comfortable with engaging it.
Yeah. Okay, so that's pretty strong. Now you've got a second one here that I wanted to bring up. Let me see. This is page 72 and 73. This is kind of like your second recalled encounter, and it's when the lights came into your bedroom, and whatever happened, these lights morphed into silhouettes of shadow people, and you feel that these particular visitations continued for a while, and there were two men, a woman, and a child, a male child. Could you tell us what you felt that was all about?
But you know what? We're just about at the bottom of the hour.
Not quite, though, are we?
So I think actually it would be good.
Oh, that's
for,
what that says. Yeah, you don't believe that?
It would be good for Mike to pick that
All
after the break.
right, we'll do that then.
Okay, so we will
Hold
be
that
back.
thought.
All right.
We'll be back in just a couple minutes. Welcome back to the show. I'm Willie Hassel and Lynn Nickerson.
And this is
our
Mike
guest
Stevens.
tonight, Mike Stevens. Welcome back, Mike.
Welcome back, Mike. So we were talking about one of your encounters where you felt that some lights came through your window that morphed into shadow beings and that you communed with them over a period of time. So what do you suppose those encounters were about?
Yeah, well, before I even get into that, I suppose I should start with the location. As we talked about earlier, when me and my cousin were looking across the yard into the neighbor's yard and saw the red light in the sky, the house we were living in was this house at the time.
Okay,
So right next door to my grandmother's at that point.
okay.
So yeah, so what would happen was I'd see balls of light kind of come in through the window. Once they, like, I don't know, hit the floor or got inside, it'd kind of just turn into, not shadows, but like darkened silhouettes. But it looked like there was smoke or movement within the silhouette. I don't know if that's what they actually looked like or that's the way my mind, just recalled it or blocked some of it out. But they had, it's hard to say, but like energies and traits, like two of them felt, even though you couldn't see any details
You
or
felt
anything.
they were male.
Two of them felt male,
Yeah.
one felt female, and one felt like a small boy child.
Yep.
And for the most part, it was the same thing. This went on for a couple of weeks at least, if not longer.
And several different encounters, right?
Yeah, this would happen
Wow.
2-3 times a week for,
Wow.
yeah.
Did you ever get any sleep as a kid?
It's about as much as I do now, I guess. But yeah, so it really felt, the males really felt strict, militaristic, almost not in an aggressive way, but they were like, we have an agenda. He's got to learn. It always felt like a school, like he had to
Yeah.
learn these lessons. And it felt like the male child was there to, I don't know, test against, but pace and see how I learned versus how he learned or something like that.
I'm sure too that he might have been learning earthling ways.
Or yeah, I'm sure there was some benefit
Yeah.
for it as well. And the mother seemed more, I say mother. The female seemed more motherly. She would pace a little bit more. She was not high strung, but she didn't want to do all this schoolwork. She wanted to interact on more of
really?
a personal level, it seemed. And these are just the impressions I got. The only real things I remember out of that, as far as like lessons going, were one time the female presented to me what looked like an arrowhead, but it was made out of like glass or crystal or something.
And it was in a box.
Yeah,
And
it
how
was
big was that box?
Probably about like that,
Okay.
like 3x5 or 5x8, something like that. And she said, "This is the key." Is that a metaphor? Is that a physical key to something? I don't even
I have
pretend
no
to know.
idea.
Yeah, I figure if it's important, I'll find out when I need to. But other than that, the one time, for the most part, I wasn't allowed off the bed. I had to sit on the bed while this was going on, and
Did you feel paralyzed?
not so much paralyzed, like I couldn't move if I tried, but more so it was almost like a respect thing. You don't do this in this
Okay.
situation. On one occasion, I was allowed off the bed to sit with the boy, and I asked him, "What are you?" And not out loud, but he beamed this image of Rosie the robot from the Jetsons into my head. And we both kind of laughed, but not out loud, like internally. And I don't know if he just thought it was funny or if he was trying to say I'm a robot, or again, so that kept going on. The last time I saw them, I was about 15 feet in the air, and I couldn't really see anything. My head was up against something.
Your head was up?
Yeah, so I kind of pulled it back, and I could see blood on this white cloth. And then when I pulled my head back further to look around, that's when I could see my back stairs, and that's when I realized I was in the air. And the blood in this white garment was the female being carrying me down.
So were you outside at this point?
Yeah, we were outside looking down at the back stairs. Well, they were like two little rickety stairs that went into a laundry room, but yeah, that's what I could see. I don't remember going into the house, but next thing I know, we're in my bedroom. The boy wasn't there this time. There were the two males and the female, but this time they didn't look like smoke. You could actually see them.
Really? And what do they look like, grays?
Kind of like grays, a little bit not as pointy at the bottom as your typical, but color-wise, they were a lot more porcelain. They were whitish with like a blue to purple hue, but they were smooth textured. And like before the classroom stuff, they always seemed very structured. They were 2 steps ahead of everything. They knew what the next move was.
Yeah.
They looked frantic this time.
Frantic?
Yeah, pacing around like they had done something they weren't supposed to. You know, I can't say with 100% surety,
Oh, yeah.
but what I've come to take from it is there was more of a abduction type snare that they stepped in the middle of, that I don't know if there's
they
rules or what,
rescued
but
you
that
from?
they intervened with.
Wow. That's amazing. You know, I've heard of this once before, and real quickly, I'll mention it. Elena Danan, it's a gift from the stars. She was rescued at the age of 7 from some ill-intentioned graves. They were small. I should have looked it up, but the guy's name is Thor Han, not Valiant Thor, but Thor Han. He is presently a member of the Galactic Federation Alliance, who are helping us right now. But he, back then, rescued her because they were in the process of putting an implant in her. So they wanted to track her. But there was more trauma involved, and she was rescued by them. So it was pretty cool. In fact, she was 7, and she was actually, she'd been stripped of her clothing, and she was on some kind of medical table. And they came and they gave her a coat, and they took her away, and they sort of immobilized the other creatures there in the room. That's so interesting. So you're not alone, but that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I could come up with.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Mike. Do you think you've seen them since then?
Not in I think I have, but in other ways. You know, a lot of people who are involved in the abduction stuff realize the connection between owls and stuff. I don't do birds so much, but I get a lot of deer, so I think they've come into my life as albino deer that I've run into a couple times.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you think that they use the same sort of screening technique, choosing the same screening item like the albino deer? Do you think it would be, they would choose one particular image so that you would recognize them or get the feeling of who they might be instead of being another group of ETs?
I think it's something like that, and something to not put you into a panic before you even get started as well.
So you think you've seen these people again?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, it's probably an ongoing lesson thing. Wow, that's just fascinating. How have you dealt with this?
It comes and goes in phases sometimes.
Especially when you were younger.
Yeah, younger was terrifying in a sense. I didn't know what was going on, but
Well, you didn't for a long time, did you?
I knew it was there, but I didn't really look at it or understand it.
But didn't you find it more frightening in your youth than you do now, or no, huh?
A little bit.
The fear continued, probably because of the unknown.
Yeah, it just came out in other ways when I was younger, like real young. Social anxieties, wouldn't talk, you know, hide behind my mother's leg type stuff.
Yeah. Gee whiz. It's a lot to deal with. I can understand why you wanted to establish Granite Skies, really.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like I'm not an expert. I don't have all the answers. By
No,
far,
but
I've got more questions than answers.
you can give a lot of people comfort.
But yeah, if you've got a, picnic basket full of sandwiches and somebody's hungry, you can give out a sandwich.
Exactly. Oh my God. This is just fascinating, and I don't know how you've managed to put up with it for so long. I mean, that it's sort of an innate fear you wind up developing,
You
and
do,
it
but
doesn't
you
go
get
away.
to a point where you can't do anything about it. So what are you going to do? And if they can get you while you're hiding in your bed, well, they can get you at the supermarket. You might as well live your life still.
I know, but there's this fear about not being in control, and when is it going to happen again?
Yeah, I mean, that's the constant thing, and that's a lot of the people I talk to. I'm always interested in their experience and what they've been through to help them work through that.
Yeah.
But it's kind of secondary. The bigger part is, what do you need to get through tonight? What do you need to get through tomorrow? Because people forget you're not just an experiencer or an inductee when it's happening. You've got to get up and function in the real world tomorrow and still do, real life stuff. You can't call in and be like, yeah, I got abducted last night. I got to think about this,
Yeah, I know. It's not a laughing matter, but it's a lot to deal with. How much time we got? 9 minutes left? 8?
17.
Oh, good. Okay. I thought that was hours. Yeah, well, whatever. Please tell us about the missing wallet and missing pants story. That is fascinating.
So we grew up in a small town. We were in Middleton, New Hampshire this time.
Okay.
Much smaller town. Like we have
Really?
a lumber yard. There's not even a convenience store in it.
Just the lumber, that's where Middleton lumber came from then?
Yeah, they bought it out, but yeah.
Wow, okay. Because there's one in Rochester too.
Yeah, now they've expanded, but yeah, from there originally. And I got lost on lumber. What was the question? I'm sorry.
the wallet and lost pants
yeah,
story.
so there are like two sides of town. There was the main road, and then
Right, yeah.
and then there was a side which was more lake, summer homes, that stuff. So to get through some of the areas as kids, we had our own trails and this and that type,
And what's your age bracket,
We're
approximately?
probably 14-ish.
Okay.
Carried a wallet but didn't really have anything in it.
Yeah.
Not much change, but
I got a wallet with nothing in it now.
but
So
yeah.
you went visiting with some of your friends
Yeah,
or something?
we'd cut through that way to hang out at somebody's house for the day, and I had gone home, don't remember anything happening or anything, was going nuts looking for my wallet.
When you got up the next morning?
To get out,
Yeah.
get out the door, yeah. And I'm like, well, it's got to be in my pants. Couldn't find the pants.
Jeez.
And so, I'm racking my brain like, I know I got home with them. There was, it wasn't like the house next door you could run real quick or something, And so for whatever reason, if you looped around a little bit and went another way, there was a new construction going in. They just poured the forms for the foundation. And
It still was off the beaten path, though, wasn't it?
And it was, I shouldn't have walked that way at all anyways. And why I got it, once it popped in my head, I'm like, no, it's got to be there. And so I walked back to there and looked around for a bit and didn't see anything or find it. But yeah, them pants or wallet or
Maybe
somewhere
that's
in
where
the universe.
maybe that's where you lost them, but they weren't there. You never found them, did
No,
you?
completely gone.
Keep your eyes open.
Weird. And then the truck, where you were driving your truck and you were afraid something was going to happen and something happened. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so this one, just for clarity, I remember this, but it was kind of hazy. I don't remember it exactly in real time, so I just like to make that clear.
You've had so many things, I don't know how you can keep them all straight.
So I was driving, and I think I know the area where I was. I think I was up by Milton, New Hampshire. There's ponds and stuff. I had the lake on one side of me, and I remember feeling like something was going to happen, like something, And then above the lake, I just saw this light, and I'm like, oh, not again.
And what color was it? White at this point?
Whitish, yeah. It was up and kind of level with me, but kind of behind me. When you drive and how you can't really.
But you just had that feeling.
So once I saw it, it was enough to throw me into a panic, and I just said, all right, I'm putting the gas down, and up ahead, not 30, 40 feet, not too far, I knew there was a spot where I could bank it and go the other way. So I did
Running
that.
away, are you?
Trying. So I did that, and I didn't see it. And I'm like, all right, this worked. And the next thing I know, the cab of the truck just fills up
With light?
with this like blue light. I could feel myself starting to be paralyzed, like I couldn't move. The last thing I did was revved the engine, but the car wasn't, or truck wasn't moving forward anymore. It was sliding sideways, like it had come to a stop and sliding, pulling itself off the side of the road that way, like against the tires. And that's the last thing I remember
That's the last thing you remember.
of that, yeah.
Do you have any recall, talking about this blue light? Some people have described this, of like molecular dissolution, of you like sort of dissolving and going through material objects. Do you have any recollection of that having happened to you?
I'm aware of it, but I don't
Yeah?
recall anything like that. I've seen stuff that maybe shouldn't happen, or like that seems physically impossible, almost like time standing still type
Yeah.
stuff. But I don't know that
Don't
I
have-
ever remember like going through a wall or a solid object or
Okay.
moleculing down to.
Well, what was your next recollection with that truck incident? Did you wake up in the truck, or were you home when you next realized?
I woke up screaming.
At home,
At
in
home,
bed?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of missing time.
Yeah.
Ooh, I don't think I want to hang around with him.
Hey, we've been hanging around with him for a long time now. We're okay, so.
Maybe. I wonder if his cousin feels the same way. There's no escaping this, I'm sure. Damn, Mike. Oh, by the way, Far Out Diner, they closed that.
Yes.
Because that sounded like a really neat, meeting place with all the UFO graffiti on the walls and whatnot.
I never got there, did you?
I never got there. No, I just saw pictures of it. And I wanted to go, and then I found out, no, it's closed.
Yeah, we were working out a deal with them when the book was released. They were going to have an item menu called Granite Fries.
Oh,
and then
my gosh.
we're going to do like the release party there, and then they just went under before it all.
That is so sad.
Was that a COVID thing?
Sort of.
Kind of, yeah.
Sort of. Kind of a
Within that
political
time,
misunderstanding or something. Okay. So you must tell us, and this happened to you twice. I found this fascinating, if you don't mind talking about it. You were in the woods camping one night, and then you found yourself in a different section of the woods, and you were lost. So when did that happen, and what happened to the best of your recollection?
Yeah, so that was,
Pawtuckaway, was it?
it was, on Pawtuckaway. It was about just over a year ago. It was in October.
Oh, wow. Well, at least it wasn't freezing. Well, it wasn't really
No,
warm
it
either.
was seasonable. It was still, hadn't become fall yet. It was
Okay.
still decent, but it was, yeah, like maybe long shirt, you were fine type weather.
Yeah.
So I'd gone out there, got camp set up, got all my firewood, cooked, ate. I was just sitting by the fire, hanging out. I wasn't going anywhere for the night.
And the heat makes you a little groggy and mellow and
And yeah, and the next thing I know, found myself just standing in the woods.
ugh.
No idea how I got there or where there was. I saw, kind of looked like a little trail, not like that you'd hike down, but maybe like a little deer trail, a little open in between the trees. And there was a log that was down, and so I said, all right, I'm going to walk up to that and sit down and kind of gather my head and,
You wonder what the heck happened.
Yeah, not panic and figure this out.
Like a bad
Because no matter what
dream.
happened, I'm still in the middle of the woods, and I got to figure that out first. So I walked up to this log to sit down and gather my thoughts, and as I got up to the log, you could see up ahead it kind of broke out into a clearing. And in that clearing, there was 5 panels. They looked like glass to me. They were black but reflective, but they were like each panel was like double the size of a sheet of plywood.
They were standing upright?
Yeah, they were like this. And at first, I almost thought I had stumbled into the back of a complex, like a building. I thought maybe it was a row of office windows or something.
Yeah.
Which really confused me, because now
Yeah.
I'm like, really, where am I? But so, yeah, there was no building. I couldn't see any structure. I assumed they were all connected together, but I couldn't see any structure connecting
Yeah.
them. So I decided I didn't want to go that way anymore.
Really? Because it would have been, well, civilization?
Yeah,
A
the initial
driveway?
shot of it being a building came and went.
Oh,
I
okay.
realized that's not what I was looking at, and
So they were
Kind-
just panels out in the woods
Yes.
that you didn't want anything to do with.
right.
And what time of night? Had night fallen, dusk?
Yeah,
What
my
was
phone, it was a perfect setup for it. Usually, I have my phone on, and I have battery backups and all this stuff, so I can at least play music or something when I'm out there. Everything went wrong that day. Everything was charged, but died or didn't work, so it died earlier. And so it was probably past 8, but I can only really tell by when
it?
the.
Okay, so nightfall had
Yeah.
come. Okay, boy, it sounds like a setup.
I
doesn't it?
knew if I was anywhere close to where I started, I was kind of like on a peninsula of land that there should be water on 3 sides of me.
Were there footprint? No snow, though.
No
right?
snow, no.
Okay.
And so I eventually just decided to pick a direction and go to it and hope I found water. And that way I could just find a tree, put my back up against it for the night and figure it out in the morning. When I did eventually find water, and I was lucky enough, because I'd been out exploring the shoreline and stuff earlier in the day, and I saw there was a Mylar balloon that said happy birthday that had washed up on shore, probably from, kid's birthday party
Right.
at a lake house somewhere at some point. And I saw that, and so I don't know if it means anything other
you had
than it
seen
was a
it
visual
previously.
reference. I knew where
Okay.
I was, and from
Okay.
there, backtrack back to camp. Fire was out, but it wasn't like huge when I left, or last I remember. So I can't say it was 3 hours or anything. Could have just been 15, 20 minutes, but it was enough for the fire to burn out. But yeah, I was
Well,
terrified.
how long do you feel it took you to get back to the campsite?
It's hard to tell, but it feels like an hour.
Okay, because I had a recollection of you having slept in the woods when you woke up. So you didn't fall asleep again after you realized you didn't know where you were. You just went back to the campsite.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
through trial and error.
Good,
But yeah.
okay.
But then I was so scared to go to bed, I just got
Oh.
the fire re-going, and I slept up next to it all night. Like I melted the bottom of my shoes, and then I.
Okay, so you did get back to camp at night? You
Yeah.
didn't- You didn't have
Night.
to wait till morning?
No,
Oh,
no, that was
Yeah.
my original strategy,
Yeah.
survival.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
if worst case.
That's where I got lost.
Yeah, but once I found the balloon, I knew where I was, so I didn't have to use that strategy.
Okay, so what happened? Anything happened during the night once you got back to the campsite?
Not that I remember or have any recall of.
So when you woke up, did you feel it had been a dream at first?
Well, I stayed up as late as I could and just
Yeah.
really focused on the fire and tried not to think about everything. And then, I don't know, 4 or 5, whenever the sun started breaking through, that's when I crawled in and went to bed. And I slept till like 10-ish or something, got a couple hours of sleep before I packed it up and got out of there.
Okay, so did you ever discover any marks on your body at that time?
I did at that time, and I'm just kind of rough and tumble and out in the woods and
Yeah.
stuff. It's
Scratches
somebody
and
who
whatnot.
tells me I'm bleeding first, not the other way, before I know, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Ooh. Okay, so what did you finally conclude? Nothing more comes to you in explanation of that event?
No, I mean, for me, that was a hard one. You know, I'd never not been brought back before.
Yeah.
At least close.
Yeah.
House or this or that. This I'd never not been returned before. And like,
How did they screw up? Or why did they screw up like that?
I don't know. I was kind
They
of
should have
like,
been able to see your campfire.
well, and I mean, I was just trying to make jokes about it. I think you find a lot of experiencers that have a great sense of humor because you got to laugh through it because what else can you do? And I was like, I should have VIP treatment at this point, guys. Like, what is this?
With all of your frequent flyer miles. Oh my gosh. Well, didn't something similar happen to your daughter and her friend?
Yeah.
And again, was it at Pawtuckaway?
This was at Pawtuckaway. This
I'm gonna
was
stay away from there.
this one was actually in the campground before we were just on the lake. We've had a bunch of different stuff happen at the site over the years. I don't know why I keep getting it. But yeah, it was a kind of a remote site. You had to take all your gear and hike into it. It's not like a mile or anything. It's not far, but so they went out at night. We didn't really get reception there. They wanted to go back up to the parking lot, check their phones, go wash their faces and stuff before bed, find the bathroom. So they went up to do that. And then my daughter's been in that park since she could walk. I mean, she knows
She's familiar with it.
Yeah, she knows it in and out. And they were coming back, and she said she heard an owl hoot. And the next thing they know, they were across the park. And from where they started to where they ended up, they would have had to crawl like over boulders, through trees, in the dark.
How long a walk would it have been if had they been awake and aware? An hour, maybe?
Yeah, maybe through the woods. It's hard to tell. Like if they went out and used the road, yeah. And then eventually, because she knew the park, she got her bearings once they saw like an
She's
outbuilding
lucky.
that was a bathroom. She knew how to get back. And the funny thing is, I had a little like LED alien head on the table that
I
was for
know.
light, and that's what she saw to find the campsite on the way back.
So did she detect that once she had started trekking to make the way back to your place? Because she could have seen it across the lake, and how the heck,
Yeah,
she can't
no,
walk on water.
they started coming back down, and then she saw it like through the trees before she got back, and knew she was at least,
So somewhere close.
Yeah.
What about the friend? Was she freaking out? She must have. She must have been scared to death.
A little bit. I think they were both still kind of in shock at that point as to what happened, but yeah, she really kind of stopped hanging around after that.
Oh my gosh, your
You
poor
know,
daughter.
with the alien head on the picnic table, I think you're looking for trouble.
Yeah, probably.
Hey, that's a good point, Mike. Keep that in mind.
But we're just about out of time.
Yeah, I know.
We got
Choose
about-
another lantern.
We got about a minute and a half, maybe.
Yeah. Is there another? Well, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, tell us about Granite Sky Services and how people can
Yeah.
get a hold of you and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so if you go to granitesky.org, basically all my information to reach me is there. You can link to Facebook. Facebook is where you'll find where our meetings and things like that
Yep.
are. And there's a link to Nomar's site, so if you want a copy
Great.
of any of his works, you can find him there. And that's probably the best way. And I try to deal with people locally, like in person, it's easier to me. You get to read somebody's body, and sometimes it's not what they're saying, it's what they're not saying. And I find that works better, but I still deal with people over the phone, emails, and that
I was
sort
going to
of
say,
stuff.
do you ever meet people in person initially, or is it usually over the phone?
I usually try to meet people in person through like an open meeting or something
Yeah.
the first time. But, some people, I'm dealing with somebody in Canada right now. I probably won't meet up with them in person ever, or not for a while if I did. So some of the
Yeah.
technology is at least useful to still have somewhere to reach out. And then I know a lot of people, and
Yeah.
as I'm working with her and her comfortability,
You're well connected.
find somebody closer to her where she and kind of branch out that way. Because
Yeah.
Granite Sky is not in competition with any of our other people who do this. We all work really well together. And
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I think you're providing a well-needed service.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mike, for
Thank you
coming
very
down
Thank
and
you,
joining us.
Mike. Really
Okay.
enjoyed this. Any closing message?
Final thoughts?
look up.
Look up, all right.
Okay.
Look up, look over your shoulder.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, again,
that's,
thanks again. It's been very interesting.
Yeah, and I guess that's the show.
Yes.
And
Another
so
great show.
we will be back again
In a
next month, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to do it again
All right.
with Jeremy Dontremont,
That's right. He's
Talking
going to be
about,
talking about lighthouses and ghosts.
lighthouses and ghosts.
Yes.
Two good subjects.
So thank
Okay.
you, everyone, for joining us.
And have a good night. and
See you
we'll
next month.
Talk to you next month.
Okay.